Did you know that in most schizophrenia patients, symptoms usually start to occur in early to mid-20s? I bet you didn't. Well, this is exactly why you want to watch this video, as I tell you the story of a young man, a brave man, who fought psychosis all of his adult life really. I'll also be explaining some of the medical aspects along the way, so by the end of the video you'll have a good understanding of schizophrenia, as well as learning about the disturbing ending, to say the least, of our story's hero, Tom Sardy. Anchorage is where the story takes place. It's Alaska's largest city with a population of over 300,000, and it's known for its beautiful trails, wildlife, and overall relaxing natural sights. Being born in 1980, Tom lived a pretty normal life initially. His father was a businessman, and he used to take him and his 3 siblings fishing. His mom had the love of the world for her children. You know, the way moms are supposed to be. And it wasn't until he became 7 years old, mental illness started to manifest in Tom's family. The first member to develop one was his mother. Formerly bright and attentive, she began displaying some unusual behavior. And by unusual behavior, I mean tiny minor things in the beginning, like forgetting to prepare lunch for her kids before going to school, or promising to attend an event and then not showing up. But the frequency of those abnormalities in her actions slowly increased, and having a husband who's a businessman certainly didn't help, as he's the last person on earth you'd think would figure out his wife is actually showing early signs of a mental illness. The couple ended up fighting all the time, to the point where their life together became basically unbearable. And in 1989, Tom's father left the house. Things only went downhill from here, as her condition kept deteriorating until she eventually showed signs of paranoia. The idea of an assassin wanting to kill her slowly but surely appeared and became fixated in her head, to the point where she once locked the doors on her children and warned them from even looking throughout the windows. That's how much she became obsessed with the idea. The mother was experiencing something known as delusion of persecution, and it's one of the most common and most dangerous ones. Because here's the thing, people who experience delusion undoubtedly believe they're going to get attacked, so they won't hesitate for 1 second to defend themselves. Imagine yourself looking at someone, being 100% sure he's about to attack you, to stab you in the chest. What would you do? You would defend yourself with whatever power you had. And that's how patients who experience delusion really feel. So they usually display a high level of violence and commitment to their actions. So when a delusional patient comes and tells you he's about to hurt you, you better believe it. Now, right about now, you may feel sorry for the mother and what she went through, but try to imagine the mix of horror, sadness, and helplessness these 4 kids experienced, as their mother, the person they loved and appreciated for as long as they lived, turned into just fragments of what she was once before. They were seeing psychosis with their own eyes for the first time in their lives. And by the word psychosis, we simply mean the inability to differentiate between what's real and what's not. Fortunately, it wasn't long until the father and the rest of the family knew about what was going on, and successfully convincing the mother to get help, she was quickly hospitalized and given treatment. And as you would expect, all 4 children were heavily traumatized by the whole incident, but in only one of them, it will end up changing the fate of his life. And by now, you probably realized I'm talking about Tom. But why him, you may ask? Out of the 4 children, why only Tom went out to develop a mental illness? After all, the 4 siblings lived the same experience. Well, we know that in the group of schizophrenia risk factors, there is a genetic component, as statistics showed that kids who have a schizophrenic parent are 10 times more vulnerable to develop the illness than the general population. I mean, the general population like me and probably you and people who doesn't have a schizophrenic parent have a 1% risk to develop the illness. But kids who have a schizophrenic parent have a 10% risk to develop the illness. And kids of both schizophrenic parents have a staggering 30% chance to develop schizophrenia during their lifetime. Some other hypotheses...
This guy is trying to convince me that 4 siblings didn't get the same condition because of some genetical factor. These kids have the same parents. Get out of here with this dog.
As I was saying, some other hypotheses like the excess of dopamine in the brain have been also proposed to explain the etiology of schizophrenia, as we are now sure that drugs that have a dopamine antagonist effect are the most effective in decreasing the positive symptoms of schizophrenia, like hallucinations and delusions. Anyways, let's get back to the story. A couple years forward, things went back to normal with Tom. In high school, he was the kind of son you would be proud of. Remarkable student, consistently good grades, and a fairly successful social life. He even wanted to join the football team once in his city. And by football, I mean soccer. Come on, guys. But that's only what everyone saw from the outside. From the inside, Tom felt different. He felt a void, a nothingness that slowly grew inside of him. He wouldn't go as far as calling himself depressed, but he certainly knew something was wrong. And he fought it. He tried to fight it. Going into college, Tom introduced himself to mountain biking and rock climbing. He and his then best friend Zach would go on extended expeditions, discovering the mountains and the nature in the area. They even did a Europe tour once, where they biked from Amsterdam to Morocco. Pretty astonishing. Tom even camped alone a couple of times, for countless nights. That's how much of a nature freak he was. And by then, what no one expected, and even you, dear viewer, don't expect what's coming next, is that Tom's introverted personality, his tendency to philosophical and creative thinking, his sadness that he felt deep inside of him, could have been a sign that he just entered the first phase of schizophrenia, the prodromal phase.